evening, everyone. My name is Jared Voss. I'm the Central Committee Chairman for the Republican Party of Mahaska County. And welcome to the forum for the sheriff and supervisor candidates. Didn't have any idea how many folks would show up, seeing as there have been a couple forums already, but thought with so many good candidates running, it'd be a great opportunity for everybody to get a chance to ask questions and listen to the candidates answer some questions. So we want to keep this real informal. Well, we're all part of the same county community. A couple of housekeeping items. There are restrooms downstairs if you've not been here before. As of a few minutes ago, the men's room was under construction. So if you need to go down there, it should be finished by now and ready to go. But if not, you might take a buddy and use the ladies' room and have somebody watch the door. So, I don't have a better suggestion for you. So, I think how we'll do this is I have a predetermined list of questions, and just so everybody's aware, the candidates have been given the questions a couple of days ago, so they know what's coming. I'm not trying to be any surprises. I asked them for a list of topics that they might want to address, and kind of use that to inform the questions, as well as just a list of questions that I thought Republican voters in Mahaska County would be interested in hearing the answers to. So I thought we would have the sheriffs go first, and we'll just get a chance to take turns answering the questions first. You can see that Trevor's not here. Trevor had a death in the family. His wife's brother, I believe, passed away out of state, and the burial was this afternoon, so he couldn't get back in time. He did write out his answers, so you'll get to enjoy listening to me read his answers. You guys have any questions? Okay. All right. When I was preparing for this, I went out and did a little bit of research on the duties for supervisor and the duties for sheriff. Well, it's easy to find sort of a list of duties for supervisors. It's on the county website. But for sheriffs, that was much more difficult. You guys will tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, but Iowa Code 331, I believe, lists just a huge list of duties that the county sheriff does. There are over 70 items there, and most of those refer to other places in the Iowa Code. So the sheriff has a lot of responsibilities, very important office, the chief law enforcement office for the local community. And I think it's real encouraging that we have 4 good candidates looking to fill that spot. I think that's a sign of a healthy community. So we'll get started, and I'll try to read Trevor's question each time it comes up. So the first question is just an opportunity to introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself, and what do you feel your qualifications are for sheriff, and why do you want to be sheriff? So I'll start out by reading Trevor's answer to that. So first he starts, to the citizens of Mahaska County, I do regret that I'm unable to attend tonight's forum due to the death of my wife's brother. I had to leave the state and won't be back until after the forum is over. I know it's always better to hear it coming from the mouth of the candidate, but hopefully I may articulate this enough so you understand my responses to the questions. When it comes to qualifications, I believe that the 4 of us have many that are similar, but I also believe that I have some that are unique to me. Of those, the most important qualification would be the fact that I have been the chief deputy of Mahaska County for the past 10 years. This supervisory position requires that I perform the duties of the sheriff in times of his absence. Many times through the years, I have fulfilled these duties as the acting sheriff. This has given me the experience that only someone who has actually worked in this position would have. I started my career with the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office as a jailer and worked my way through the ranks to my current position, having worked in various positions with the Sheriff's Office, to include heading the Mahaska County Drug Operations for over 6 years, and currently being the sex crimes investigator. I understand the requirements and importance of each position. Another qualification unique to me is that I have been either hired were promoted by all 3 of the sheriffs I worked for. I believe this shows that they were confident in my abilities. Also, I'm a wartime veteran, having served in Operation Desert Storm. People who have served in the military tend to be very patriotic and have a deep love for God and country. I'm proud to be one of them. I have served in law enforcement for 24 years and have dedicated most of my career to the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office. I believe I have the experience where it counts the most. I have always strived to do more in my line of work. I was born and raised here. My wife and I own a business here. My kids and grandkids live here, as do my extended family and friends. I want this to be a safe place for all to live and raise a family, just like I have through the years. I believe that my qualifications would help to make Mahaska County a better place to live. Okay, that's Trevor's answer. We'll just go on down the line. No, you don't have to read it. You should just, in fact, it's probably a little more boring if you just, no, I don't. So go ahead. You can use the microphone.
I'm Doug McMillan, as most of you probably know by now from the previous forums. I really like the people in Mahaska County. It's important to know that my friends, my family, and a lot of my relatives are from here. I have quite a few relatives here, actually. Most of them are passed on by now. I have deep roots in this county, and I really care about the people of the county. And one of my primary focuses, if I'm elected sheriff, is to make sure that you, your children, and all of your grandchildren grow up in a safe community, and you're safe in your homes, with your property, and whatever it takes. That's my job. I want to make sure that you stay that way. That's how I grew up over in Knoxville. And the relatives that I had that did live there, they grew up in a safe community. That's one thing I want to do for the entire county, not just Oskaloosa. I've always felt that everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their life circumstances, and I will treat everybody that way, and I will encourage all the deputies underneath me to do the same thing the entire time they're on duty and off duty. Everybody can be treated good all the time. Just so you know, I do have the qualifications for this job. When I was young, I worked on a farm with my father, and I ran a business there, helped him with that, and after he passed away, I ran a bulldozing business with a partner over in Knoxville. When I came up to get into law enforcement, I took that opportunity. I was hired by the Oskaloosa Police Department, graduated from the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, and then when Beverly Hutchison retired, I applied for her job, and Charles Van Torn hired me, and I've been there ever since. So currently I work as the Sheriff's Office as the sex offender compliance officer. In other words, I go out and I check up on all the sex offenders in the county. There's currently about 76. That fluctuates on a monthly basis, but right now we have about 76. My job is to go out and make sure they live where they live, they work where they work, make sure they're not on the internet, have emails, things like that, because some of them do tend to be sneaky, and it's my job to be sneaky right back at them. And if they violate, then I file on them. They go to jail, or I sent a couple to prison the last few years. So it's part of the job, but that's what I do too. Thank you.
I'm Russ Van Rentingham. Was born and raised on a farm in rural Powashik County. As a child, I developed an interest in law enforcement. Following my graduation, I attended college and got an AAS degree in criminal justice. What do I feel qualifies me as Mahaska County Sheriff is my 30 years of law enforcement experience. All of my law enforcement, with the exception of 1 year as a reserve officer in Fairfield, Iowa, my other 30 years of law enforcement have all been with the Oskaloosa Police Department. 23 of my greatest qualification, in my opinion, is 23 of those 30 years I've been a lieutenant with the police department. A lieutenant on our police department is a supervisory role. I'm a shift commander, in addition to being in charge of several delegated areas for the city. Why do I want to be the sheriff in Mahaska County? About 3.5 years ago, following the election, the last election of our current sheriff, I went to him and I met with him and I said, Paul, how long are you going to do this? And he indicated to me at that time that this was probably going to be his last term, and it was at that time that I started looking into the possibility of running for sheriff. I'm the outsider amongst the four of us. It's myself running against three current Mahaska County deputies. I believe as an outsider, I can come into that department and make some subtle, yet needed changes that will benefit the community. Since early 1987, Beth and I made Mahaska County our home. I have a vested interest in the service of the Sheriff's Department, and it's just I've done all I can with the Police Department, excuse me. Stepping into the role as Mahaska County Sheriff, I believe, would be just a career advancement for myself. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deputy Randy Poe. I've been raised in Mahaska County. I've been married to my wife Brenda for 34 years. I have my father in the audience who has been with me and has helped me hand out over 600 door knocking cards, I call them. I really am proud of him. And I've handed out over 1,000, and I've met a lot of you in the county. The only place I've ever worked is Mahaska County Sheriff's Office. That's the only place I've ever wanted to work, and that's where I plan on retiring. After high school, I attended Indian Hills Community College and received a degree in criminal justice, where I also, during that course of study, received the Police Management Sheriff's Administration college credits. I received 3 credits in that area. And I've also attended many schools, which also qualified me for sheriff. I've been to the civil school for 1 week, which 60% of the sheriff's office is civil, which a lot of you may not know. And I've attended that school and got all the training I need to hand out civil papers. I've done probably approximately 20,000 of those in my career. I've also attended a winter school and other Iowa Sheriffs and Deputies Association schools, which are important to help make the laws, harder new laws for the state of Iowa. So if I was elected as sheriff, I believe it would be very important that I would hopefully get on a committee so I can help get the changes in some of the laws that some of us are suffering with. So thank you very much.
Okay, understanding that the job has a large learning curve and covers a wide range of duties, what or who will you look for advice to help bring you up to speed on county issues? Go ahead.
For me, that's a no-brainer. If I'm elected sheriff, it'll be approximately 1 month at the time. Oops, you want that? To me, that's a no-brainer. If I'm elected sheriff, I'll be approximately 1 month from the time I actually take office to the current sheriff leaves office. He'll be able to help, and I'm sure he'll be more than willing to help me with that. And then there's also the office staff and those that work there are very knowledgeable what they do. They know that office very well. They know how it works. They've always been helpful in the past. I'm sure they will continue to be so. The Mahaska County attorney and all the supervisors, I'm sure they're going to want to try to make it easy too, because we're all going to work together and we will. And if I'm elected, I'll be there for 4 years. We're all going to try to get along. Remember, get along with all the citizens of the county. I'm also friends with retired Sheriff Charles Van Horn. He's already talked to me about this in the past, and I'm sure he'll continue to give me some pointers here and there. So as far as the budget goes and learning things like that, I don't even see that to be a problem.
If I get elected as a sheriff here, as I told you in the previous answer, I've already met with the current sheriff. I have a commitment from him to assist me with the budget and with any other matter I have. In addition to our sheriff, I am personally familiar with 2 of the 4 surrounding sheriffs in neighboring counties. I know 2 of them on a very personal basis. I've gotten commitments from both of them. Both of them are incumbents, so they have the experience to assist me with any matter I might have. Budgetary matters, I'm going to work with the auditor's department, with the board of supervisors on the budgetary items. Any elected official in Mahaska County can assist me with the various roles or bring me up to speed on the new role I'll be taking. Excuse me. One of the biggest, closest relationships I'm going to maintain is with the county attorney's office. You'll hear me talk here a little bit later on about liability issues and so on. That is vitally important to maintain, not only for criminal prosecution, but for liability reasons. You have to have a close working relationship with the county attorney's office.
I've had an opportunity to review the budget. I purchased it over 2 months ago for the last 5 years and have looked it over. As far as any significant changes, I don't really see any that I foresee as other than if there would be two new deputies hired. The current budget has already been decided on 2016 through 2017. I did find that out also. I would like to continue to work with some of my friends who are currently in the sheriff's office position. I actually graduated with them in the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy in 1993, and that's two of the surrounding counties. They said they'd be happy to meet with me at any time, and I also have met with them last August to get me where I'm at today. I'm very proud of them. I'm glad to know that my friends, and they're still sheriffs to this day. I've also had some meetings with the previous sheriff, Charlie Van Torn. He did an excellent job with budgets, probably one of the best sheriffs we've ever had, and he has also been assisting me in going over the budget with me. And so, I guess with those things, and also the county attorney's office, he would be a place to start to help with the budget. He's probably one of the top guys. And once you learn that, I've been told by the people I've been talking to, that once you learn it, you can do it on your own. So just the starting stepping stone, that's what some of the places I would look to get that experience.
Okay, and Trevor says, there are several county issues that the sheriff faces, but fortunately there are several community leaders that may help with any questions I have. I could speak with former sheriffs, the county attorney, county board of supervisors, or the county auditor. I could also speak with citizens who are knowledgeable about the issue. Who I would turn to for advice would of course depend on the issue, but even with all the years of supervisory experience I have with the sheriff's office, I would not begin to claim that I have all the answers. I know there will be times that I will need the advice of other community leaders. The next question was about, do you have experience working on a budget? Have you reviewed the current sheriff's office jail or operations budget? And do you see the need for any significant changes? I know several of you began to address that already. Doug, did you have anything to add about budget changes?
Other than I guess all my take on it is I do have some budget experience. Like I said earlier, I ran a bulldozer construction business over in Knoxville, so I worked on the budget there and the payroll, and also the farming operation. And other than that, the budget is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a needs versus wants thing. So if the county needs it, I'll do what I can to see they get it, regardless whether it's a deputy, the girls in the office, or whoever. As far as the wants, I mean, that's just a secondary, and I will not waste the money, but I will see that we get what we need, and work with supervisors to do so.
If you'll allow me to tell a very brief story. When I turned 16, my dad had me open my first checking account at the Poweshiek County Savings Bank. About a month later, now let me back up a little bit. Poweshiek County Savings Bank, if you overdrew your checking account, you got a neon green envelope in your mail. Okay, a month after I opened my account, I came home after a date, and my dad was still waiting up for me. I found this kind of odd. Sitting on the table in front of him was a neon green envelope. He informed me that as long as I was residing under his roof, he'd better never see another one of those envelopes in his mail again. That taught me a very good lesson. It has not happened in the past 36 years, 34 years, excuse me. Has not happened since then. I maintain my personal budget along with my wife. We know what we can spend, we know what we can't spend. Okay. I have reviewed the current Sheriff's Department budget with Sheriff DeGeese. Just to briefly break it down for you, the jail portion of the budget is just slightly less than $1 million. The patrol budget and the civil budget is lumped together as one. It's between 1.25 million and 1.3 million. And then there's like an addendum to it for the law center maintenance. That budget, that addendum is about $150,000. Any projected changes that I see, the only change I would make to the current budget to next year's budget would be a cost of living increase. I would try to keep it at the level it is now. Anticipated changes, I can see, believe it or not, I believe in the next 4 years, I can reduce the budget in 2 areas, in overtime and in training costs. Thank you.
I really had the experience yet, like I said, dealing with a $2 million budget yet, but like I said, I have the resources in place ready to help me at any time I need it. I'm very good with my personal finances. I guess I've strived to be that way my whole life. I had good teachers from my parents, and I put 2 kids through 4 years of college, and I'm debt-free. I've been debt-free for 20 years because I'm very self-conscientious about money and other people's money as well. So I'm not trying to brag about that. It's just something I've really worked at. My wife and I have really worked at. So money is not an issue. I'm really good at saving money. And like I said, 4 years of college for 2 kids is not the cheapest thing in the world to do. But to be able to say you're debt-free in 2 years with that, and I guess that's something I'm proud of. And if I can manage my own finances, I should be able to at least have a good start on helping managing the public's finances.
Thank you. Trevor writes regarding the budget, my wife and I own a small business, so I do have experience managing smaller budgets such as that. I have reviewed the entire Sheriff's Office budget, and I have at times worked on the budget with Sheriff DeGeest. I do see a need for a salary change in the budget. At this time, we have a problem with being able to retain jailers. The starting pay for a jailer is $26,500 a year. When I worked at the jail over 20 years ago, I made $21,500 a year. That's only a $5,000 increase. The sheriff, the county is spending the money either way, but paying jailers more rather than training new hires will only help to keep good, experienced jailers longer. It is my understanding that dispatcher wage is going to be around $30,000, and I believe that jailers deserve to have a more competitive wage also. I also would like to research the possibility of hiring 1 or 2 more deputies. Sheriff DeGeest did not fill his vacated deputy position when he was elected as sheriff. I would like to fill that position, and I would like to be able to hire another deputy. With the increase in crimes such as drugs, theft, burglaries, and sex abuse, I feel the added manpower is needed. I understand that any budget changes would have to be approved by the county supervisors, but I do feel these changes need to be researched and considered in order to continue to keep the citizens of the county safe. Okay, next question. As sheriff, you'll be responsible for management of personnel at the sheriff's office and jail. Do you have prior experience with the supervision and management of others? Can you give an example of how you've worked to resolve a conflict in the workplace?
As I previously stated, I've been a lieutenant with the police department for 23 years. That is a supervisory position. So I have 23 years of experience in that. In addition, excuse me, let me back up if I may. As a lieutenant, I have 3 years experience as the supervisor in charge of criminal investigations within the city. And the remaining years, 20 years, I've been a shift commander for patrol division. An example of a conflict, it's not a daily thing. We don't have to mediate conflict, but it happens quite a bit anytime you have a group of personnel working together. An example would be I came to work, it's probably been right at 9 months ago, and I noticed that one of my subordinates was just growling and snapping at everybody in the room. And generally I try not to pry into the personal business. He had just came to work, so I suspected that it was a personal matter, but I didn't jump in. I tried to let him just get through it, and he just didn't stop. After 10 minutes of him snapping at his coworkers, and then when he started snapping at his supervisor, I thought, I have to do something about it. I pulled him into my office, and we visited in private, and trying to make a long story short, he felt that he had been wronged at work the day before by a coworker. This is not a coworker that was on my shift. It was not a coworker that was present. And it was very easy to resolve this conflict with him. I explained to him, I said, that employee you're talking about, is he here? Well, no. I said, was it me? No. Because he had told me the other patrolman's name. And I just pointed out to him, I said, if you were in any of our shoes, would you want you snapping at us for something somebody else did? That's just a very trivial example, but it's not a daily basis, but I can assure you it's a weekly basis where there's conflict on the police department that I have to help resolve.
guess my supervising experience would be even outside of law enforcement. When I worked at Vermeer Manufacturing, I was a crewman leader for the production line for 7 years. When I got into law enforcement, I believe, even though I'm not a chief deputy or a sheriff at this point, I do believe I've had a supervising experience for my whole 23-year career. I've seen many reserve officers come and go, where I've helped train them, guide them, lead them, assist them on races, drag races, many different functions throughout the county. And I guess to me, they're kind of green. I also been supervising college interns for the whole 23 years that I've been there. And it seems like most of these people have been put in my squad car to help train. And some of them are a challenge. I would guess that to me, if they have no training and they're trying to learn, they're getting back to their community, they don't get paid to do these things. And so you've got your hands full every day with a reserve officer. To me, it makes sense that 23 years of training reserve officers who know little to nothing would be way more difficult than to train a group of 3 or 4 officers on shift that are highly trained police officers. I guess I haven't been a supervisor of the police officers, but I would think it would make more sense and it'd be more difficult to train guys about what they're doing. It would be the guys that do know what they're doing. As far as the conflict goes, I've had one with a dispatcher that was where we basically didn't like each other for a long time, because when you're working by yourself, many times you would search a building and you want it quiet if the bad guys are in there. And so what I would do is I'd turn my radio down and we'd do status checks. I would turn it down so the bad guy couldn't hear my radio. And she would be angry. She would call my cell phone and just shoot me out. So then my cell phone's ringing. Ring, ring, ring. So I think, oh boy, I'm going to be shot. Because I'm trying to be quiet. So since then, we were talking behind each other's backs, and it got worse and worse. Everybody started hearing about it. So finally I said, the only way to solve this problem is go to that person. So I went to the source, which was her. And we had a long discussion. I explained to her my point of view, and she explained to me her point of view, that she was concerned for my safety. That's why she was doing the things she was doing. And we came to an agreement to resolve the issue, and since then, we don't spat at each other and aren't angry at each other. We get along great. We're like friends now. So that's just one conflict example that I've had.
Trevor writes, while I feel the Sheriff's Office does not tend to have a lot of employee conflicts, as a supervisor I have been involved with some. To resolve those conflicts, I first spoke with each party involved individually. I then spoke with the parties together until a solution could be reached.
You have to understand, as the deputy sheriff, I handle disputes and conflict every day on every shift without fail. Whenever I'm called to the scene of a domestic dispute, a fight, property dispute, property lines, there's just numerous things that people argue about, believe it or not, and we deal with it all the time. All of us do. It's my job to hear both sides of the story and make a reasonable, prompt decision of what we're going to do within a reasonable amount of time. And it's going to be the same way at work. I've not really dealt with anything. I've been a supervisor on this department. I was a senior officer for the Oskaloosa PD when I was there for a few years. There was really nothing serious. Anything that happened usually went up to the supervisors or the lieutenants. But if something does happen like this, I'll handle it like I do on the street. I'll listen to both parties, listen to both sides. I'll gather some information, do an investigation, and talk to them both. And regardless of what happens, I will do it so that my decision will be something that's appropriate for the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office, and hopefully everybody will have a good outcome of it.
Okay, next question shifts gears a little bit. Civil asset forfeiture is a recent hot button topic. Does it affect our county? And what is your position regarding its use? Randy, I think it's your turn to start.
Civil asset forfeiture has always been a problem for this county, and to explain just a little bit what it's about is people that make illegal crimes, or let's say they're a drug dealer, or they're doing something that's highly illegal to obtain personal gain. Those are times where the Sheriff's Office, we have done asset forfeitures, which a lot of the people are against that, because we go in and we apply to, we take these people's property if we can prove that it's for illegal gain. I can think of instances over in Rose Hill, for example, a few years ago where we took $8,000 in cash and we take vehicles for people. If we can prove that those items are illegally obtained, we can take that money. The money then goes to the state, but we can get an application from the state then to get all that money back. So that money then can be used by the sheriff's office to buy drug equipment and things for further drug enforcement. And so that's what we use it for, and it's no cost to the budget. It's not coming out of the sheriff's office budget. It is money that is taken back from people that are committing illegal crimes. So I've been really blessed to be able to, a lot of searches, or a lot of seizures of equipment. I've done one with the task force in the last 6 months where we took motorcycles, cars, trucks, and basically probably $75,000 to $100,000 worth of items that were bought with drug money. We was able to get through asset and forfeiture seizures. But I know it is a hot topic, but I do support it, because I believe they shouldn't be committing crimes like that. If they're getting things for free by selling drugs to people, then I think the sheriff's office should be able to use that money to combat those kind of crimes.
Trevor writes, civil asset forfeiture does affect our county. If a civil asset forfeiture is filed, it is done so by the county attorney. During my tenure as the Mahaska County Drug Task Force officer, I have closely worked with whoever the county attorney was at the time, and we would discuss the case at length. The times I have been involved, it was proceeds from drug dealers of either cash money and or vehicles. We were able to prove that these persons that were convicted of felony drug convictions were using this cash money and or vehicles from the sale of illegal narcotics. I do believe that this has to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. If I believe this was being abused, I would have to step in as your sheriff and not allow this to happen by my deputies.
Mahaska County does have civil forfeitures. The law is there right now. We collect the evidence, we get rid of what we don't need. In other words, we give it back to the people we took it from. As long as it's evidence, we need it for our ongoing criminal cases, and we do keep it. Once it's forfeited, eventually it goes to auction. We are allowed to use it to benefit our department. If we seize a car, like Randy mentioned earlier, we're allowed to use that car and drive it around for whatever purpose. And most of the time it's an undercover car that's totally unmarked and they have ghost plates on them. So we do use stuff like that, and it's allowed by law. So it says, as far as these forfeitures go, for example, if a car is worth $10,000 and we forfeit it, a small percentage of that goes to the state and the rest of it goes to the department. It's not just cars, it's guns, the cash. They get large amounts of cash once in a while. I mean, there's numerous things. Large televisions, anything you can think of, if it's stolen or got by ill-gotten means, and it can be forfeited on. I know people don't like it, but it's just kind of, this part of law enforcement life. As a sheriff, I would not allow that to happen if it's not necessary. If it's definitely not legal, it's not going to happen. We're not going to take something that's not ours or we don't have a right to. As far as the money goes, once things are sold, they usually go to an auction eventually. We don't keep the vehicles forever. They sell them off, and all the money and the cash that comes in, I would eventually use that to better our department, better upgrade our equipment. Like the tasers we have now, they're getting old. I currently have a bulletproof vest that's 13 years old. They're only rated for 5 years. It's due to be retired eventually. The money can also be used for training the officers and updates and things like that, send them to schools, or else have schools come around. Sometimes we travel for schools, and sometimes they come here, but money can always be used for the department to make something better for all of us.
Civil asset forfeiture is, in a nutshell, it is a tool for law enforcement agencies to recoup the cost of an investigation. Real property, such as farms, your houses, and so forth. Back when I was on the drug task force in southeast Iowa, we actually seized and forfeited farms. We seized and forfeited houses. At that time, because criminal activity, excuse me, let me back up, felony activity, no misdemeanors, you cannot seize property or forfeit it for any misdemeanor. It must be a felony. They've since changed the laws. It used to be if I committed a felony on my farm, it was forfeitable. If I sold drugs in my house, that's a felony, it was forfeitable. That portion of the law has changed. Now to forfeit a farm, we must prove that it was purchased with illegal monies, either through money laundering, drug sales, that type of thing. Same way with to forfeit a house. Vehicles and personal property and cash are a little different. If any of them are proceeds of a felony or are used to commit a felony, they are forfeitable. Okay. Monies, the value of cars, farms, houses, that money, I believe it's 85% comes back to the agency, and it's in the Code of Iowa that it must be used to enhance the current department budget. It can't go into the general fund for the county. It has to go toward enhancing the current budget. In a nutshell, I'm in favor of forfeitures to recoup the cost of an investigation. I mentioned drug dealers. A drug investigation, someone who's dealing drugs, it's very expensive. The number of man hours that are put into it. Let's use another example, a homicide. If I drive my car over to another part of the county and I commit a homicide, that's going to cost the county thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to conduct that. Any money we can recoup from a felon who chose to commit that felony to help cover the cost of that investigation, I'm in favor of. The only other civil asset forfeiture I might comment on is, as a sheriff, any court order we receive from the district court telling us to go seize property as a result of a civil hearing, we don't have any choice. Court orders we must follow.
Thanks. Next question is, immigration enforcement is also a current hot button topic. Does it affect our county? And how will your leadership affect immigration enforcement in Mahaska County? Trevor writes, yes, it does affect our county because we do have illegal immigrants here. Law enforcement is not able to enforce illegal immigration on simple misdemeanors, like traffic violations. However, we must become involved when the nature of the crime is violent or felonious. Illegal immigration is such a large problem that truly we as sheriffs do not have the money, manpower, or quite frankly the time to enforce it unless it is necessary due to the serious nature of the crime. I strongly oppose any place being a sanctuary city.
We do have illegal immigrants in our community and throughout the county. They're here. So this is an issue that does affect our county. We have some illegal immigrants, and we expect the federal government to enforce their laws, since they did enact those laws in the first place. And like Trevor had mentioned, on the county level, we can't do anything to them if it's simple misdemeanors. They have to commit something pretty serious before we can do much about it. Anytime we deal with them, though, we do contact ICE and let them take care of them. Hopefully they do. They don't always do that. Under my leadership, I will instruct the deputies to follow our policies and stick with those, and they also will be treated fairly like everyone else. But if it gets to the point they have to be reported, that's where something where ICE has to come into it. If ICE doesn't come get them, and sometimes they do not, we have to let them know, and they're still here in our community. It's a shame because they should come get them. If the federal government's, it is the federal government's responsibility to do it, and they should follow the laws they enact and adopt. If they do not come to pick up these individuals, it's not the sheriff not doing his job, it's actually the federal government.
But Mahaska County does have several illegal immigrants. The law enforcement in Mahaska County, our dispatch center has a 24-hour number where we can contact immigrations and customs enforcement. And that's the ICE that Doug spoke of. A real quick question, or excuse me, real quick story again. We don't always get a lot of cooperation from immigrations. It was the first year that the 4-lane bypass was opened around Oskaloosa. A car that had 4 what we suspected to be illegal immigrants. And as immigrants, I'm not talking about just Hispanics. You know, we have Croatians and Bosnians and Laotians. It's not just the Hispanics. But anyway, this particular case had 4 individuals in it that we thought were illegal immigrants. We contacted immigrations. This was at about 11 o'clock at night, and said, hey, these 3 don't have any documents. One of them could speak some very broken English, and basically we knew they were here illegally. We were told at that time, if you don't have a van or a busload of illegal immigrants, don't call us again. We wrote the citation to them and kicked them loose. About 7:30, quarter till 8 the next morning, Immigrations is calling our department, saying, do you still have those 4 individuals? And we said, no, we don't. And make a long story short, when they got into their database that morning, one of the names we gave them, Immigrations, as well as, I believe it was the DCI out of Des Moines, they were looking for that individual as a suspect in a homicide in the Des Moines area. So, yes, we can contact Immigrations. We don't always get a lot of cooperation out of them. A very hot topic in not only Iowa, but several of the states recently is what they call an ICE detainer. An ICE detainer request is Immigrations asking local law enforcement, we think this individual is an illegal alien. Will you put him in your jail until we can figure that out? I'm sorry, not illegal alien, immigrant. There are several ICE detainer requests being made by the federal government in all 50 states, and it's hitting Iowa hard. When I say we, Mahaska County has never honored one of those requests. It is not mandatory. I am glad that we do not honor that request for a couple of reasons, and we won't honor it, any request, if I'm sheriff. The detainers are voluntary. Okay. The federal government has 3 certified federal jails, federal holding facilities in Iowa that are Polk County, Linn County, and Johnson County. If they want to hold, they want someone to hold an illegal, they need to put them in their facility for this reason. The liability to a sheriff's department who holds under an ICE detainer is enormous. Counties, if you do the research, the study's been done by the University of Iowa as well as several other schools. Sioux County has paid out the nose for holding who ICE thought was an illegal immigrant, and they turned out not to be. They were here legally. They had the documentation. I am not in favor of holding any ICE detainer, and it won't happen. We have them here. We do, some investigations that we do work as far as the illegals are, like the immigration fraud. A person who goes to the DOT and tries to obtain a driver's license under false pretenses so that they can appear to be illegals. We do a lot of that investigation. There's several, most of the illegal immigration investigations are of a fraud nature, them trying to make themselves appear to be legal citizens. Sorry, Ricky. I have one more point I wanted to make. We've all heard of Sheriff Arpaio out of Maricopa County, Arizona, the biggest county in Arizona. Over the last, whether you agree with that sheriff or not, the toughest sheriff in the nation, he has some good ideas, but his department and he, over the past 3 years, have paid out over $40 million in civil penalties as a result of lawsuits. Most of the lawsuits come from ICE detainers and his dealing with who he thinks is illegal immigrants. They have such a serious problem down there, and that's on a huge scale compared to Mahaska County. That's a huge county, but they have such a big problem there. This current fiscal budget they're working under, they had to add an additional $13 million to his budget to fight the ongoing lawsuits and to pay out the expected penalties that they'll be paying this year. That's a grand scale. I don't even want it to be a small scale in Mahaska County if we were to hold someone improperly. Please read it.
Bear with me, I only need 5 more minutes to rest in. So I should be done by 7 o'clock if you're ready. I'll just tell you that there are problems in this state, but not necessarily our county. I've been out there on these streets and roads all night long, day and night, many nights, and I see very few illegal immigrants in this county. So we are very blessed because of that. The ones that I do see that I pick up are from farmers, chicken farmers, hog farmers that want their buildings sprayed down. I'll pick them up. I've arrested for OWIs and things like that, but I've never had them commit serious enough crimes very often where I can actually get them held in jails and detainers, which I'm also against. So I guess I've called ICE on numerous occasions, and what they tell me is, if you have a crime serious enough to hold them for 72 hours, we'll consider coming up from Texas and picking them up. Otherwise, just let them go. And so normally that's what I do because I'm not the federal government, and so I don't want the detainer responsibility either. So that's it. I'm going to make mine short.
Thank you. Prison and sentencing reform is also a current hot button topic. How do you approach this issue? And as sheriff, will you be active in advocating a particular position with the Iowa legislature or our representatives? Whose turn is it?
On May 12th of this year, Governor Branstad signed into law the sentencing reform bill. This is a product of the legislature's hard work, and as sheriff, I'm happy to serve on a task force with the legislature to give them my input and help. But as Mahaska County Sheriff, it is also my responsibility to follow the laws that the legislature passes, and if the legislature wants to amend those laws and make sentencing harsher or more lenient, it's my job to enforce them laws. We have all of our jobs to do that. If the legislature gives the courts more discretion to make the sentencing guidelines more lenient or harsher, that's not going to be my decision. The legislature makes these laws, and the courts enforce the laws, and the law enforcement officer, sheriff, or otherwise, it's my duty to bring those people to the court system.
Our current sheriff sits on the board of directors, if you will, for the 8th Judicial Department of Corrections. It is the board that governs our district down here for parole and probation. That is not an elected, it's not a mandatory position. He was appointed there by a group of judges because of his long tenure as a sheriff. The court systems nowadays are so inundated with cases. If any of you are familiar with James Longman, the county attorney, ask him how busy, how swamped the court cases is. If we were to want to send everybody to prison who went through our district court, we would have to build dozens and dozens of new prisons. Forcible felonies, dangerous individuals, absolutely. I'm locked up to protect everybody in the county. But we have to take a realistic view of it. Okay. Economically, we have to have probation. We can't put everybody in prison. I have difficulty expressing myself here. There are so many people who go through the court systems who have not committed a forcible felony, a blue-collar crime, you might say. It's not right what they did, but if we lock every one of them in prison, we don't have enough prison space. As far as lobbying for any changes, professionally, I would contact representatives from the Iowa State Sheriff and Deputies Association. They do a lot of lobbying on behalf of all the 99 counties in Iowa. But I certainly feel on a personal basis, I certainly as a citizen, not just because I was the sheriff, but as a citizen, I have the right to contact my board of supervisors, my representatives, whether that's Senator Ernst, Ken. I have that right to do it, and I've never been shy to contact officials when I have an opinion.
As far as prison sentencing reform, the best way I can see to make a difference is to get on the Iowa Sheriff's Deputies Association board. I've gone to some of those schools already and have learned a lot of things, but the best way, if you would want to make a difference in our county or board statewide just to try to get elected onto the committee. I know that Sheriff Charles Van Torn has been on that committee. I would be a goal of mine someday as a sheriff to be on that committee to help make a difference on new prison guidelines and reform. I also agree with Russ on that. I don't think we need to lock everybody up. But also at the same time, I really get frustrated when I put someone in jail that's injured someone for life, and I see them back out on the streets doing it again 6 months later. So I don't have a good answer for that, other than I would like to sit on that board someday, or that committee, and sit together with a group of other individuals to make that decision, and not to make that decision all on my own. I'd love to be able to sit down and hash it out with other sheriffs and deputies throughout the state of Iowa.
Trevor writes, I do believe in reform. For one, it does cost more for taxpayers to house prisoners than to have them released under the supervision of the Department of Corrections. Secondly, it will also hopefully help those offenders become productive members of society. However, I do not agree with this when it involves a violent or repeat offender who shows no signs or intention of reforming. Okay, next question is a question about federal overreach. As an office holder in the state of Iowa, I believe you'll be asked to take the following oath of office, and many of you guys already have taken this oath due to your current roles. It goes like this: I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Iowa, and I will faithfully and impartially, to the best of my ability, discharge all the duties of the office in, as now, or hereafter required by law. So, two-part question. First, the federal government frequently uses funding, including grants, as a means to control behavior and sometimes please interest groups at the state and county levels. Since the 9th and 10th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution prevent the federal government from expanding its reach beyond the enumerated powers, is it the sworn duty, due to the oath, of local office holders to reject any funding, programs, or projects not arising from those enumerated powers? To the best of your knowledge, are there any current or proposed programs that fall under this category? I think it's Trevor's turn to go first. No, it's Russ's turn first.
When I first read this question, first thing that came to my mind is any of us who are old enough to remember this. Back in, I believe it was early to mid 80s, the federal government notified all the states in the union, you will drop all your speed limits on every highway in your state down to 55. If you do not do that, all federal road funding is cut off completely. Iowa did do that. There were a few states who refused. One of the Dakotas and another state out west did that. I was a young driver at the time, and when I read that question, that came to mind. The 9th Amendment says, in a nutshell, citizens of the United States have more rights than are listed in the first 8 amendments. The 10th Amendment says the federal government only has the rights listed above in the top 9 amendments. All other powers go to the state and to the citizens. There are programs, like I said, the federal government notifying the speed limit issue, that was a biggie in my opinion. I think a lot of those bugs have been worked out. As far as funding, yes, if inappropriate funding is made available, obviously a sheriff should not go after that. There are a lot of grants available to our sheriff's department. Some of our local grants, and I'm going to have to read these because I can't remember them all. You know, the Mahaska County Community Foundation, they've got grants for interns and equipment. Our local Walmart provides grants to local law enforcement for equipment. Some of the state grants, the GTSB, you know, the Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau, they have several traffic enforcement grants. CEDA has grants for equipment and such. Some of the federal grants that are available out there through the Department of Justice, there's the Project North Star, that's a grant where military weapons can be used by law enforcement. Mahaska County as well as Oskaloosa have both partaken in that grant. The COPS grants, the community-oriented policing, there's grants, there's money available there for personnel, partial payment for additional personnel. There's also what's called a DEC grant. That's the Drug and Endangered Children. That's a joint training funding for law enforcement and county attorneys across the state. Mahaska County has participated in that grant several times. I have not a lot. I have limited experience in both writing grant requests and reviewing grants through the Oskaloosa Police Department. Just like the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department has applied for and received several grants. The ones I just listed, I feel are reputable grants. Several of them have been proven through the court system. I'm a little leery of any grant, though, that has strings attached to it. I'll give you a quick example. There are some safety belt grants out there. Law enforcement can request extra money for overtime pay to get officers to go out and enforce the safety belt law. I believe in the safety belt law. I believe everybody should wear that. Some of those grants have a requirement, though. That requirement being, if you participate in this, you must issue citations. Okay. Code of Iowa absolutely bars any type of traffic quotas. Telling people you have to issue a citation in lieu of a warning, you're getting dangerously close to a quota. Okay. I told you I believe in the safety belt law. But should the 80-year-old lady who pulls out of the Hy-Vee parking lot and just simply forgot to put it on be issued a citation, especially if she's on a fixed income? I also don't believe in whether it's free monies, grants, whatever you call it, that are questionable. The list I gave you are ones that Mahaska County has participated in and Oskaloosa have participated in. There are thousands and thousands of grants out there available, but until they're researched, law enforcement should avoid them to avoid any conflict or special interest conflicts.
I believe the Oskaloosa Police Department and the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office has participated in those step enforcement programs, and I got to admit I was part of that for a while also, of issuing citations to people, and you really don't have a choice not to, which I did get out of that probably 5 years ago. I just didn't feel it was right anymore, so I did not participate in that. Yeah, we do have grants out there, a lot of grants out there. Currently, if I was hired as a sheriff, I would like to see a grant writer. The next person I would hire would be a grant writer. Our last person who wrote grants was Deputy Donnie Cock, if you remember him. And if I was hired, I believe that would be a stipulation of being on the department as a new hire. That's one of the first things I'd look for to help the county save dollars in grants. As far as the sheriff intervening, messing with the 9th and 10th Amendment, I do not agree with that. I believe that you should go to the Iowa State Sheriff's and Deputies Association and collectively make that agreement with the committee and the board and the input from the public to that board to make those decisions. I don't believe the local sheriff would just start intervening with the 9th and 10th Amendment. I don't agree. And unless there's court orders would override that, of course. Without a court order, I would not intervene with the 9th and 10th Amendment decisions.
Trevor writes, I do not believe there are any programs that fall under the 9th or 10th Amendments in Mahaska County that I'm aware of. I would strongly object to the funding of a program and or project in lieu of the federal government special interest group.
When I was in the Oskaloosa Police Department, I did work with STEP program also, and it was the deal where they insisted you write citations. When I went to the sheriff's office, I was in charge of that same program, the STEP program, and I would turn the stats in at the end of each program, which ran several different times through the year, and we would show where we wrote all the citations, not just for the seatbelts, but for other violations also. And some of the guys would turn in stats for just warnings for a seatbelt, and every time I would receive a nasty note from the administrators up in the state, which came down from federal money, but they did not like to use us writing warnings for seatbelts. So I eventually scrapped the program and haven't been involved in it since then. I doubt very much that I will be interested as sheriff in getting that program again. I just don't agree with it. Otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, these issues are far beyond the sheriff's making. They're issues best left to the court, and to my knowledge, I am not aware of any of these current proposed programs that fall under this category that affect the sheriff's office. As sheriff, I would require the federal government to enact their policy and laws and let them come down and they can write the speed on tickets, and we'll do other things like making the county safe for you guys.
Thank you. Okay, the second part of the question is, if any agency or group engages in or sanctions the destruction of life, liberty, or the seizure of lawfully gained property of a citizen, a local citizen, does the local sheriff have the duty to intervene? Again, with the oath of office in mind. Randy?
I believe that was a very difficult question for me because I wasn't sure if when they start talking about the loss of life, I wasn't sure really what that meant. Are we talking about eminent domain? I'm not sure really what that question meant, I guess. If you're talking about eminent domain, I don't believe that you should seize land of a farmer to build an airport, if that's what that means, as a local sheriff. I believe you were court ordered to do things, then I believe that you should intervene. But yeah, I'm not sure what that question meant about, life, liberty, properties. That's how I perceive it, is they're trying to ask me the question how I feel about eminent domain. So I guess I don't feel the sheriff should intervene in that. They should support however the voters vote and only act if it's court ordered for the sheriff to get involved in that situation.
I think, to expound on the question a little bit, I think what's referring to, what we typically think of in this category would be weapons used for self-defense, right? So that would be property, but property that's specifically protected by the Second Amendment. Taking life or any type of property, of course, without due process of law would be protected by the Fourth Amendment. I think that's what the question's getting at. I'll read Trevor's response. As your sheriff, there may be times that I would have to act as a cushion between the federal and state governments. For example, if the federal or state government wanted to come in and take your weapons, I, as your sheriff, would have to deny them of this to protect the Second Amendment rights of the citizens of Mahaska County. It is my duty to ensure that the constitutional rights of citizens are protected and respected by the Mahaska County Sheriff's Office.
I think that entire question is kind of a gray area, so this is something I would not take any action in unless I contact the county attorney and come up with some kind of plan first. I wouldn't go out there on a deal like this just to guns blazing, because you probably end up with some dead deputies. Very possible. If it's serious enough where the government wants to come down and take guns or do something like that, then they have a lot of federal officers. They got more than we do, so they can bring them down. And if the county attorney agrees and tells us to assist, then we'll do that.
I believe the sheriff has an absolute obligation to intervene if a group of individuals or individuals alone are taking life, taking property, damaging property, that type of thing. I would like to note, though, as law enforcement, we don't have the authority to file charges against an organization. The Attorney General's office does, and the United States Attorney General's office does. We do, as law enforcement officers, have the authority and the obligation to file on an individual member of organizations for any criminal act that they participate in.
Okay, that's all the questions that had been predetermined. Are there any questions from the audience? It's possible that after enough forums, all the questions have been asked and answered. I don't know. So.
Now, Trevor Wells said that as sheriff, he would not confiscate private citizens' weapons if the federal government came in and said, we're going to confiscate everybody's weapon, like they did down in Louisiana during the big floods down there. And I think that's a pretty important question that needs to be answered outright.
Would you guys like to address that more specifically?
I guess I can't, comment a whole lot on what they've done on the floods you're talking about. I would imagine.
Well, during Katrina, they went house to house confiscating everybody's weapon.
I can imagine why they would do that. If the house was abandoned, I could see them
No,
taking the weapons.
no. They went house to house in neighborhoods where people were living, confiscating guns from everyone.
I don't know why they would do that. I would not do that here at all.
Well, so then that's the question. The government said go in and confiscate everybody's weapon, and is the sheriff obligated to do that, or would he refuse to do that?
I would refuse. That's what the National Guard's for. If they want to come take your guns, they'll just have to do it. I'm not gonna do it. You can keep your guns.
This is a very hot topic, and it's come up in both the previous forums. As a sheriff, me and my deputies are not going to be seizing individual citizens' guns. That is protected under the Second Amendment, and if the state or the federal government decides they're going to issue that order, I'm not going to put myself or my deputies in a revolt, and that's exactly what would happen across the nation if that happens. It's not going to happen. No one's taking my guns, because I'm not a felon, okay? And I ain't taking no one else's guns who are eligible to possess them, period.
I totally agree with the other candidates on that. If it was an order from as high as the White House, I still would not take someone's gun. I've got enough years in that I guess I would retire gratefully before I would take the citizens' rights, because I know it's a very strong issue, and I would give up. You know, I've got the years in, like I said, and it's such an important issue, and my job is not as important as the people of Mahaska County, so that's what I would do.
Thank you. Other questions? Just one more, maybe in the interest of time. Okay, thank you very much.